I would say that the weak and the feckless leadership of the Biden administration is exactly what's invited this disaster along Ukraine's eastern border. And what Putin has actually been doing is very consistent ever since Joe Biden has been in leadership positions. We can't forget that it was in 2014, while Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, that Vladimir Putin seized Crimea and initiated the war in the East. And now, the only difference between what exactly happened in 2014 and now is that Joe Biden is openly threatening Vladimir Putin with overt sanctions and a complete deterioration in relations between the United States and Russia. And Vladimir Putin is calling him on his bluff. And this is something that I believe does more to diminish America's standing in the world, more so than possibly even the Afghanistan withdrawal, considering that the United States is potentially facing a two-front conflict with both China and Russia simultaneously.
Let's take a listen to Rick Grinnell. Rick Grinnell, I believe it was yesterday, had something to say about this whole situation. Take a listen.
President Putin knows right now that the United States doesn't have a policy, that it's only going to go along with the Europeans. This has been an instruction from the State Department to our embassies, and I think it's really a low point. I think it gives up the ability of the United States to have a policy. It certainly isn't putting America first.
You know, and so, Fred, let's start with you. It is obvious to any foreign policy watcher that under President Trump, there was trust but verify going back and forth with Putin and Trump. And now it seems like as soon as Trump leaves office, there's a constant testing of the U.S. will, of Biden's U.S. will, what will or what will he not do by Putin and others. We'll get to others in a minute. But any coincidence that Trump leaves, Biden comes in, and all of a sudden Putin starts to act up?
Oh, no, I don't think it's a coincidence at all. And I think Ambassador Grinnell is up to something. I believe these troops amassed on the Ukraine border probably are not there to invade. I think they're a bargaining chip, not just to get huge concessions from Biden, but to divide NATO, to divide the United States from NATO. And that's already happening. Biden is making promises and statements to the Russians without clearing them with NATO. And NATO states, especially states in the eastern areas of NATO, they're not happy about it. And I think you can see Putin exploiting this weakness, exploiting this confused American foreign policy with great effect.
You know, and George, let's talk a little bit about something else. Another front that it looks like Biden is weak, and it looks like another world leader is pushing the envelope with Biden to see how strong he is and how strong he'll react. And I'm talking about China and President Xi. I mean, there's no coincidence that the same month, Vladimir Putin and President Xi are both testing the will of the United States and Joe Biden. If Xi goes into Taiwan, or if Putin goes into Ukraine, what's Biden going to do? What do you predict Biden will do, George?
I believe the hallmark of what the United States foreign policy posture regarding the U.S.-Russia relations under President Trump was exactly designed to prevent this ossified relationship, which we have witnessed over the past year between both Russia and China. And that's not simply in terms of the military sphere, but we've seen a massive energy deal to the tune of $400 billion inked between China and Russia at the same time when both are saber-rattling in the Taiwan Straits, eastern Ukraine, and we can't forget, of course, that Iran is once again saber-rattling and on the march towards a nuclear weapon, all under the Biden administration. So while I don't think, of course, that Russia and China are hosting or holding secret talks regarding a potential simultaneous attack, they both do smell blood in the water. They do understand that Joe Biden is looking at historic disapproval ratings. His vice president is also looking at historic disapproval ratings. He's facing a lot of contentious issues domestically, including the border, inflation, and our standing in the world has been tarnished as a direct effect of this. And I think due to these weaknesses, you are seeing our main competitors, both in Asia and in Eastern Europe, and including the Middle East, testing Biden. And unfortunately, this leading from behind, we have seen this once before. It was while Joe Biden was the vice president, and it seems that his complete national security team is aloof to the dangers America faces abroad.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.